I started the Facebook group a while back. Christian Content Facebook group. And when I started the group, I didn't have any thoughts of a podcast. It was just a group of people because I was getting really into Christian content. And what is that? We can clarify that later. A lot of people might be listening, but what is Christian content? But I was getting into that, and I think it started with reading. I think Krieger got me into reading the Screwtape Letters. The funny thing is like I bought that and I read most of it, and then like a long period of time went away, and I quit reading it, and then I came back months later. I started over, and I finally finished it. But I was getting more focused on that kind of stuff, like podcasts, books, even the movies, and like on the shelf there. I've been collecting all kinds of my favorite movies, even the old ones, because the older they are, the cheesier they are. Do you remember the Buttercream Gang? Like, it's a great movie. You remember that?
Yeah.
I didn't know because I talked to somebody about that and they hadn't.
Sure.
But I think Christian movies were like notorious for being cheesy, and they would be so cheesy people would be turned off by them, you know. But especially later in the days, like when like a lot of the Kirk Cameron movies. Of course, there's some lower budget actors, actresses, you could say, who aren't the greatest, but I think his movies are pretty good. But I started to get into that stuff and even the cheesy stuff, and I just was like really submerging myself into that kind of content. Whether I'm driving, I'm listening to like a preacher online on YouTube or a Christian podcast, which I think the podcast that turned me on to Christian podcasts in general was the Unashamed podcast with the Robertson family. That was like the first one, because I've always really been drawn to like their lifestyle and the stuff that they do, because I'm big in as you guys know, the outdoors stuff. It was like last night when I was cleaning the fish. That stuff kind of came to me later in life for whatever reason. During a couple weeks ago, I was talking to my brother and his wife, and I was telling them, I think there's like this weird, I don't know, there's just something to the all the fishing in the Bible. I don't know what that is that's been calling to me, but it's really been making me want to be out there more. And but I think there's a lot to the togetherness and the fellowship that comes with, hey, I caught a bunch of fish, I just filleted these fish, come eat with me, you know, kind of thing. I think there's a lot to that, and you know, I really enjoy the fellowship that comes with that kind of stuff too. So I think that's what drew me to all that. But anyway, the content side of things, I just started that group based on that, and I never really did much with it. We added a handful of people. We would kind of post back and forth. I would say, hey, check out this podcast I listened to today, or this band that I listened to today, and I thought, there's all this stuff out here people don't even know about. Like, how can we get more people in tune to the better content that's actually there? Because it's underground-ish. It's not mainstream, you know. So how do you even find it? I mean, you were. What was the band that you were in?
So I joined a band years ago called Our Heart's Hero, and we signed to Goatee Records, and we released an album, our debut album, self-titled on that.
Technical difficulties. There you go.
There you go. It's your boy. What up? It's hard to talk about that one instance when it's like it's bookended by quite a few.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Quite a few things. But back in the day, yeah, like the band called Our Heart's Hero, and we were able to be on to that one record on Goatee Records. But like the scale of the Christian music industry, or just like Christian industry on some level, like you mentioned some of the movies, right? The Cameron movies, or remember when I think it was Facing the Giants?
It's on my shelf.
Yeah. Like what? Just, you know, this was kind of like the new renaissance of like Christian content kind of stuff. But like people don't realize the size and scale of the industry is actually much different. So like if you have, let's say you have a hit on the radio, it's like number one hit for, let's say you're Beyonce or you're Dr. Dre or whatever, Taylor Swift, you have a number one hit single, right? Now, of course, those people are already fabulously wealthy, but like if, let's say you're just a one hit wonder, you get just a number one hit single, whatever, like Call Me Maybe, or one of those, like, this is just it. And then the artist kind of just not there anymore. That person is set for life, right? Like you get, you don't really have to do anything the rest of your life. You're pretty much, unless you're trying to take your career to like a bigger level. But if you get a number one hit single in the Christian world, you will maybe get a new house, probably a new car. But that's really it. I mean, the scale of, just the amount of, is just there. And so then you factor in like visibility, you factor in, a couple of these other things, and then it becomes, harder to find, as well as some of this stuff where I think a lot of churches will try to do, content and stuff, and people are doing so much better at it now, like with podcasts and stuff like that. But everyone's kind of trying to do more stuff and get stuff out there, which is good. But it's kind of hard. I think sometimes you have this, what's the same thing that happened with like MySpace, right? Like everyone decided to make a MySpace for their band, and everyone decided, and so now you've got to sift through quite a bit to find the stuff that is, case in point here, you mentioned some of the stuff you've been watching. Like I have been on this rabbit hole of Tim Keller. You guys know who Tim Keller is?
I don't think so.
Guys, Tim Keller is way smarter about theology than I will ever be. I mean, he just passed away recently. Tim Keller is just absolutely amazing. He's a really cool guy, but also just one of the most, thought out theologians in terms of like, he's telling you what the Bible says on like a really deep level, but then also he combines it with like, but practically in somebody's heart, this is what's going on. So he's just fabulous. But I have watched as in listened. I've listened to probably, over 10 hours of his sermons so far, and every one of them blows my mind. Every one of them is a banger that I'll just like text my wife, just be like, oh my gosh, you got to watch this Tim Keller sermon. It's like 42 minutes. Watch it right now. We'll talk about it during dinner. And then like 10 minutes later, I'm like, here's this 34-minute Tim Keller sermon. You need to watch this. And I'm kind of like throwing her a bunch of stuff, which she watches it while gardening. But yeah, that's just something that, I've been really into, but like, it's also something that I had to kind of seek out. I only found out about Tim Keller. He has like a 40, 50 year plus ministry that's been going on for, a long time. And I just now found out about it after he died.
I've never heard of him.
One of the smartest theologians.
Yeah, I just looked him up. He didn't look familiar at all.
I mean, just some old dude, as they all are, right? I mean, we are too, right?
Yeah. Well, that's the thing with it, man. Is like there's a lot of stuff out there. Well, I mean, like we grew up on like like the Christian punk and ska stuff. That's a whole other topic that I don't want to get into today, just because a lot of those bands were. They were riding the wave of the Christian trend more than they were actually Christians, because a lot of them nowadays just aren't. And it's hard to go back and listen to that music because I feel it's empty, knowing where they ended up or where they are now. But at the same time, like there's music there. There was a big, I don't want to call it a scene, but there's a lot of content, and there always has been. It just seems to be that there's a lot more now, and dealing with like people driving to work, listening to like the K-Love radio station stuff. They're getting mainstream Christian media, the CCM stuff, which is fine. Like I'm not hating on it because I listen to a lot of it, but what I'm saying is like sometimes there are people who are like, I want to be Christian. I want to follow this lifestyle. And they're like, but man, music's terrible. But man, there's probably a band out there that is what you're looking for. Or there's probably a book out there or a movie out there that's a good movie that's like you can sit and watch with your family after dinner. That teach your kids, morals, things about Jesus, things like that, rather than just turn on garbage, because we're like such a frog in a pot analogy, where we just kind of accept anything that they put on the TV as like, well, this is fine, when it's not. It's most of the time is damaging. But there's a ton of it, man, and I've just been on this journey to find as much of it as I can, because I want to just submerge my entire life in it, because I'm just a weak human, and it's almost like fuel, you know what I mean, for my Christianity, so to speak. I'm not one of those people that well, it's sinful if you go and you listen to Metallica today. It's not that, but I think that some people handle it differently. And with me, like the hardcore music, like with my history and like my past, like that music is like, it would like kind of like strike a chord with like a part of me that's not good. It's like a violent part. It's like there's nothing about that was good. And I'm not saying it does that for everybody, but for me, listening to that heavy stuff, it just makes me feel angry. I don't want to feel like that. So I want to find the music that has something, some heart behind it. And
I think this is talk about rabbit trails. I mean, that's kind of what we do. We're really good at getting on rabbit trails. But
all over the place.
Yeah, we love them. Like it's fine. Honestly, that's how we do this. Man, one thing I think is like, I don't want to get like real conspiracy theory or anything.
It might help our viewers.
Well, that's true. Yeah. Anyways, them aliens. Like one thing that I think is like, some of my background is in marketing and like marketing analysis. So like basically, what are the things that companies do to get people to buy their products? What are the things they put in advertisements to get people to either click on the link or to come in the store or whatever. And you wouldn't believe, like, if you're not in, this kind of industry, like you see an ad on the street or a commercial or whatever, there have been not just thousands, not just hundreds of thousands, not just millions, billions of dollars are spent every year to try to convince you to listen to something, to look at something, to buy something, to subscribe to something, to take up your time, to get you to worry about something or to think you need something. I mean, the list goes on and on, but if they can create this need, then you will buy something. You will, do whatever, it is that the company wants you to do, right? And this is marketing, this is business. But what really, is killer is that, like, there is a backlash to that in the sense of like, a fallout of that, like an effect of, we like are just so constantly bombarded with these messages and tantalized with these things that are like these instant gratification kind of things, that like, if we just go with the flow and turn whatever's on, well, then we're just sucked into what everybody wants us to see, whatever morals that they think are correct or whatever. And when I read the Bible, it says to focus on Christ. It says to worry about His kingdom first. We actually just started before, like off camera, like whenever we started, we prayed when we started, but we read this verse, Philippians 4:8. I'm going to put on my old man glasses here to read this, but it says, this is from the NIV version. Philippians 4:8 says, "Finally, brothers and sisters, whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is admirable, if anything is excellent or praiseworthy, think about such things." And of course, the things that are most praiseworthy are the things that, glorify Christ, and point to Him, that this is the ultimate truth in the universe. It is the heart of the Bible, Jesus Christ. And the things that point to Him, that point to the author of life, to me, make us feel more alive. Whereas like you flip to the other side of this, where, you have, if you're constantly worried about, oh, what should I buy? Is this fashionable? Is this going to make my friends like me? Is this going to support the right political agenda or whatever? Then you're not thinking about Christ and what pleases him. And so many times I think that is that's the pressure, because like there is a war for time. There is a war for our attention, and the things that we focus on are the things that are, going to shape us into who we are, because I find myself in that sometimes too, where it's like I wake up one day and I'm just thinking like, oh my gosh, I'm so worried about this, I'm so worried about that. And then I think, well, what have I been thinking about? What have I been filling my mind with constantly? Is it, worrying about whether this person said something mean to me on Facebook or whatever? Or is it, man, I read this Bible verse and the Spirit has been using it to convict me? And that there's such a massive difference in me. I mean, my wife can tell you, it's like the weeks that I am focused on Christ and the weeks that I'm focused on his word, and the times when I'm not focused, when I'm off in the weeds or I'm distracted and stuff, prone to wonder, Lord, I feel it, prone to leave the God I love, take my heart and seal it, the classic hymn, right?
Yeah, I can relate to 100%, but I feel a lot better knowing that I'm not the only one that does that. Because it's weird that we even do that too, because we know 100% the difference it makes the times that our routines are, we get up at a decent hour. First thing we're doing is getting the Bible out. And then, you're spending the whole day. Your whole day is just so different when you start out with that time in the morning. And then there are the days that I fall into where it's like, I don't have time for that because I'm so caught up in everything else with what am I worrying about this morning? Same thing I was worrying about last night because I haven't found a solution.
We're going to stick all these fish, dude. What am I going to do with them?
I wish those were my only worries. Sometimes I do shut down emotionally when I'm so overwhelmed and I just go fishing. Yesterday, the reason I went fishing was I was in the van and I was heading. I don't know if I should put this online. I was supposed to go do some work, and I passed Bob. Bob was coming across that bridge. I stopped. I said, "You going fishing?" He's like, "Yeah, I'll see you there." I just called and rescheduled my appointments.
It's like the definition of playing hooky,
dude.
You know what I mean? Like you literally going fishing.
I rescheduled my appointments, and we fished for like 5 or 6 hours, and it was very therapeutic because I definitely needed that. You gotta have the fulfillment. When you get too overwhelmed and you don't have any fulfillment, it's pretty bad. But yeah, I fall into those. I fall into those too. Krieger, what's your you? I've always known you to have pretty cool like routines and stuff, and you don't deviate from it a ton, or maybe or do you? Like you're always eating like a healthy breakfast, and I mean, do you read your Bible every morning?
No. I like to, or listen to the Bible or whatever. We listen to daily audio Bible.
And Marissa does that every day, doesn't she?
And, well, I do kind of like getting behind on that because then I get to, listen to like 4 or 5 whole, a day's worth of it in a row and like really get in it. But yeah, I do think good habits, good routines, I mean, that's part of discipline, and I think discipline in all things are great. But even so, and this might even work against the whole Christian concept maybe, but instead of worrying about like, and I'm not saying not to try these things, but instead of concerning yourself with, well, what is available out there, or what's available that I like anyway. And when you're talking about music, of course, that's been a big thing for us. When, like, I've been to so many, not so many, but the handful of churches in a number of years, and it's like I don't really like the music style-wise, but it's not even about the style of the music. Is about why are we here?
Right.
And maybe they are getting something out of worshiping that way. Maybe other people are getting something out of hearing it. And therefore, when I realize that, like, I start to get something out of just being near that, being a part of that as well. And then all of a sudden, it doesn't matter if I like the music, because this is all circumstantial. Just like your health, I mean, kind of like the Job. I mean, if the way he worshiped, the way he trusted God was all based off of how well his life was going, or does he have a lot of support or a lot of things that he likes that are going on, whether it's music or, hey, my family lived, past today or this week or whatever is going on, like, then that's a very weak thing to base anything on. So whether there was ever music that I enjoyed or didn't enjoy shouldn't affect the whole point of it all. Whether there's movies I like or don't like. I mean, what if we don't watch movies? What if we don't listen to music? I mean, I feel like those things, I mean, God uses all kinds of things. And I'm not saying that we shouldn't, and we should all turn like Amish or something. But all of these things are based off of circumstances instead of where is our heart really.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, you like fishing, and the times that you get to, just think like, oh, praise God, I get to experience this, and I have my health to do this, and finances where I don't have to just slave away, the entire day, and instead of where a lot of people, I haven't heard you do this, but like a lot of people just complain that they can't go fishing every day or whatever their thing might be, because once again, it's circumstances. So can we still be what God wants us to be? Can we still do what God wants to do, no matter what circumstances are?
Man, I feel so guilty now after all that, because I agree with you 100%, and I just don't think I do a very good job of being Job-like, if that makes any sense.
It's hard not to be circumstantial though, because like me and Chelsea were talking about this as we were driving up here, but just like, are we enjoying ourselves in God? Are we focusing on God? Do we love him for him? Is he the reward, or is all the things around him the reward? Are we trying to do these things because we want his blessing, or do we love the blesser? And that's just hard. I mean, because like, over time, I think that's a Christian maturity. Like you fall more in love with Jesus. You realize the depth of his love for you. And you will you will fall more in love with him, but at the start, you think about the blessings, you think about all the things. I don't know. I mean, the Job analogy is just so good. I think there's so much there. I mean, just from like a background perspective, and maybe this is kind of, we can jump into this, but in terms of just like, a lot of my background is in worship ministry. That's actually what I am right now. I'm a worship minister at a church in Trenton, Ohio. And so that's what I do for, the majority of my time. But I feel the same. Like sometimes people will come up to me and they'll be like, we don't like this, modern song, or we don't, whatever. They want the old hymns or whatever. Or on the flip side, like I've been in churches where it's like, oh man, you did Great Is Thy Faithfulness. That song's so old. Why would you do that? You could do Hillsong's whatever, whatever their new 8-minute banger is. But like
some people are getting, they are attached to that stuff they're hearing on the radio.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. But like, for me, like if you'd say, what is the music that really you feel like, is the way that either you feel more in connection with God most of, or, that you feel like you worship best with? I mean, it'd have a lot of chugs and a lot of screaming and stuff. I mean, that's just what I, gravitate towards, and it has nothing to do with any, whether the song is a hymn or whether the song has a U2 riff or whatever. So I'm kind of there, know exactly what you mean, because it's like, is this about? Now, of course, we try to just, with whatever we have, to praise the Lord. It's a biblical command that we have to praise the Lord, to make music in our hearts, songs, hymns, spiritual songs. But also, it's like there's no genre attached to that. It's not like you have to worship God like a U2 song, or you have to worship God with an organ and a piano, right? So I when they come and say, "Man, I don't like that song," I tell them, what? I don't either. But our command is to worship together in community, and to try to find and work something out. And so many times I'm just like, well, man, you can come do it if you want. Like if you want to sing, it's like, I can't really. It's like, well, okay.
I think there's a lot to unpack, really, with what Krieger said, because what kind of off topic a little bit. What came to my mind was, was kind of like the mega church thing that popped in my head, and it's really more about an experience that I had was, he's talking about like, well, somebody else is getting something from it, like, back when the mega church thing first started. And when it was getting big, because there was a point where it kind of started to kind of pop up out of nowhere. I was really turned off by that. And then I started to think, man, like, well, I'm not even going to church at all. What do I have to say? Because there are people that are going, and they're getting something from that too. But yeah, absolutely. Real quick, I can edit this out. I don't know if my autofocus is what was triggering this. I just turned my autofocus off because I was wondering because it's noisy.
Yeah, I did notice that.
Did you notice it too?
Yeah.
And I just need to make sure that I'm still in focus. Am I still in focus?
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. That's what I was looking at too.
I can edit that.
I actually think you should keep that.
We can keep it.
We're still working out the technical difficulties. Obviously, this is our first maiden voyage here. We just kind of started riffing and vibing. But
yeah, we did.
This is basically Corey's brainchild. Something I feel like God's laid on his heart, to talk about this and to share. So he called two of his friends, and basically,
these are just conversations that I have with you guys. Period. You know what I mean? Anyway,
and why not just film it all?
We
right?
just talk like this. When I go to his house, and of course we go out in the creek and we're doing stuff, and it all kind of leads back to this kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. And when you and I started to chat on the phone, I was like, this is very similar when I talked to Krieger. And so I thought this would be cool to include you guys in on that. I just figured that the chats that we would have would be something that would be interesting for people to see. They can kind of go in line with the theme of it all and all that. That's my water pump kicking on. By the way, if I could just assume that your wife watering the ducks is probably what that is.
It's fantastic.
She's probably watering the ducks and the chickens.
We're somewhere roundabouts outside of Cincinnati in the boonies.
In the boonies, where you have to have a water pump and a big holding tank outside for running water.
Yeah, Corey's rocking the homestead.
Is that weird for you? It's not weird for him. He grew up with it.
Nah.
Yeah. He grew up in the same exact scenario. Well, heck, you had it at your house somewhat recently ish.
Yeah.
When you had a cistern, your parents got running water many years ago, but when you moved in on the property, you had a cistern, right?
Yeah, we had a cistern for a couple years. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
So Corey, maybe we could just kind of real quickly just introduce ourselves. So your name is Corey?
My name is Corey. I don't even know how to go about this. This doesn't feel like I could do this organically. When people introduce themselves, it's like we start talking about like what they do for a living. What I do for a living is the most, I don't want to say uninteresting. It's the thing I am least interested in my life. Being an electrician. The only thing that I like about being an electrician is I love the technology. I love electricity in general because I'm really knowledgeable about it. Well, what I love are just the people and the conversations that I end up getting. the people that I meet. But yeah, I when it comes to just life, my passion is stuff that we've been talking about. My passion is music. Just taking something and making something, kind of a thing, and whether it could be taking a guitar, making music, or taking a bunch of wood and making a structure.
And that's kind of where I think a lot of us are at, and kind of what initially got us together, right?
Got us, yeah.
Yeah, was music. Obviously, we're all musicians here. Definitely more in the, was it like the punk? You mentioned like the punk ska scene. That's kind of where you cut your teeth on.
That's where we started. Because when I met Krieger, I was in junior high when I met him. I was just leaving 8th grade. Because I remember the last day of school in 8th grade. You know, what teacher actually does work on the last day of school? I remember this. This is what I remember. I was trying to ditch my class in 8th grade, and Krieger and a bunch of people were not really doing anything. They were in the band room, in the back room, like playing my Ibanez. You were sitting there playing my Ibanez. I was trying to ditch class, and they weren't having it. The teacher was looking for me. I remember going back to 8th grade science. We're actually doing work. I'm like, what is this? Why are we doing this? But yeah. Anyway, so yeah, me and Krieger, we started playing music back then, and for whatever reason, I started writing music. Mom got me a guitar around that time, and I started writing music. I don't even know how we did it. We started a band. We played in that band for a long time, and we actually got pretty good. And then when we quit, I got even better as a musician. But that's what I was into, was the punk stuff. I wasn't into the Christian side of it back then, though. I wish I was. I mean, I wasn't. I mean, I had a long road ahead before I was going to submit to that in any way, shape, or form.
And in a lot of ways, that, I mean, this is just nostalgia talking here, but like in a lot of ways, that era of like, I don't know, Christian music, when I feel like it wasn't, I don't know, it was kind of raw. I loved it.
Yeah.
Like
absolutely.
I loved the birth of like and this is like in the harder kind of shows our genres, but like, you know, in the harder stuff, you have some of like the emo, screamo, the hardcore, the straight edge, you know, back whenever Under Oath was like the newest, freshest thing ever.
Yeah.
You know, it's kind of a awesome time. Basically, what was that? The record Tooth and Nail did a lot of that.
Tooth and Nail did a lot of that. Yeah. That could be a whole nother episode too, but yeah, they did a lot of that. But yeah, it takes me back to just like the Ichthus days. You familiar with Ichthus? Of course, being from that part of Kentucky, did you ever go?
So I went, I think twice, and then that's actually where I think I saw Chelsea's band. So my wife.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
I didn't know she was in a band, and she played at Ichthus.
Yeah.
Oh, that's really cool.
They were on one of the little bitty stages. Yeah, you know, the baby stage.
That's awesome.
But yeah, they played there before. Unfortunately, that's a badge there of honor that nobody will ever get anymore, because it's, you know, kind of by the wayside. But yeah,
they tried to revamp it a couple times. I don't think it ever really did what it did. But that was something that, being a Christian later in life, I'm wishing existed, so that I could experience it as a Christian. You know, I experienced it back then as just somebody that liked punk rock music. With I had no real connection to anything else. I wish I had. That's one of the things that bothers me the most. I guess you would say I regret the most. I definitely regret that time of my life a ton. Just the way that I handled things, the way that I was in general. But that's kind of what this is all about, I guess.
So you mentioned you found the Lord later in life. Like, what kind of age were you when you?
I was in jail.
You were in jail. And how old were you?
24. That was when it started. I mean, I didn't like. Honestly, I would say that the last few years was when I had been like, I really came. You know, I think that because like there was. I don't know. There was just a period of time of just growth, I guess, and learning and ignorance, and there was a big gap of the time when I was broken and was seeking to. There's a big gap from there until the last couple years when I just actually dove in to the Bible and studied it. So it's been a weird journey. It's not a standard journey, and honestly, you know, that's also kind of where you guys come in, because, you know, I'll bring up my friend Eric, who plays a big part in this, because he's been a Christian for years, and he's just done Christian music for as long as I've known him. And he had this band called they were called Curb Squirrels. They were a punk band, and Eric was around they were getting big around the time of like the Tooth and Nail days, and it was kind of a thing. Like, I don't know how to word this. I'm not trying to sound rude about it, but there was kind of a thing where people would always say that they're Christians, but they're not a Christian band. I don't know if you've ever heard that before.
Yeah.
But Eric's music was Christian music. He's everything he's singing about Jesus and everything, but I don't think all of his band members were Christian. It might have been really what it was. But Eric's just always put out really awesome Christian music, and nowadays, you know, that's just what he does. He does Christian music that is biblical. But the point of bringing him up was, when I met him, he was running a recording studio, and you know, he was just like his level of I don't really have a lack of better description. His level of Christianity was just so high, and I just felt, I always looked at him like, I can never be like this guy. Like, how can I be? You know, you look at people and that, and you're like, oh, these guys are just really good. I mean, you don't know what their struggles are and stuff like that. And if I had this conversation with Eric, he would probably say, man, you know, hey, I had this. But the thing is, like, when I felt like it was impossible for me to ever get to that level. But so that's when I started to really dive into the reading and the studying, the content, cutting ties with people, man, that are bad for me, bringing in people that are encouraging to me, that can help me be better, you know. So that's kind of been where I've come from with all that. I've come a very, very long way, and I you know, I'm 41. You know, I still have these weird little victories. You know, we talked about when I finished reading the Screw Tape Letters, man. I really felt like around that time, finishing that book, praying specifically on this topic, that I was able to take all this bitterness that I had and not even realize about certain things and people from my past, and just get rid of it. So what I've stopped doing is trying to say, I'm not going to be as good as this guy, or as good of a Christian as this person. I've stopped that, and I've just focused on my little victories in that.
Yeah.
If that makes any sense, because Jesus is the only perfect being. So I'm never ever going to even get close to that level. But I guess maybe that was a lie that the devil was telling me, and maybe that was why, you know, maybe that held me back, you know, because it was one of those, I can never do that kind of thing, so I didn't even try, maybe. But when I threw that away and just started to actually focus, that's when I found my relationship with Jesus just becoming a real relationship.
What prompted that change? Like, I mean, you because, like, you know, and I know not everybody's here in the room with us here, but like, and of course it's not a now thing, but like, you know, the person who, you know, you have in front of us, Corey, like, you know, it's just crazy that the changes that, you know, you talk about your past and stuff, but the person that you are now doesn't, like, I don't even like, you tell me stories about this back in the day, and it's like, I don't even recognize this person you're talking about.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's apparent to see that like God's working in your life, but like, where is that? You mentioned like you threw away that lie, but it's like what prompted that? Because usually people a lie will get lodged in there and it becomes a part of who they are. It becomes a part of their identity. And a lot of times when you get those things lodged in, adulthood kind of era, 30s kind of thing, you don't think differently. You don't change.
Yeah. So there was a huge gap, like I said, from when it actually started until, well, I guess with maybe it's not like this with everybody. I don't feel like mine was an overnight thing. I feel like it was an over years thing. And when I mentioned that I was in jail, that was like a breaking point. That was just like, it was like what else could actually happen at that time, because that was around 2008 when, my stepdad had just passed away. I get into a fight. I'm in jail, and then I get out, and I don't actually get out. I'm going through the court system and stuff, and then I get sentenced. And while I'm in there, I'm in a relationship with a girl for like 7 years. She breaks up with me while I'm in jail. I get out of jail, and like there's like 30 days after that, Mom dies, and I'm just like, how much more can I take? But there was literally a point where I fell, and I literally said the words, "Okay, God, whatever your will." I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. It was part of my wedding vows with Bobby Joe, and I said, there was a point where I literally prayed for death. Like I just didn't want to be here. I didn't know what else to do. I'm like, how is it even possible to come back from all this? And so, all that stuff happened, and it was, it's funny. I wrote a song about that point. I said, thinking of the words I wish I hadn't said. And what I mean by that was when I said, okay, God, whatever your will. Like there was a time frame when I kind of said, man, I kind of wish I hadn't said that, because when I did, things got worse, before they got better. And I don't know. It was the most painful thing I've ever experienced in my life. But where I'm at with life and this insane life that I have, you did this to me on purpose, didn't you? I'm going to not be able to do this with the kids and with Bobby Joe. I would do it all. I would do it 20 more times. I don't care. I would go through it all. I would do it again. I would feel all that pain, all that grief. It doesn't matter. If it brought me back here, because I just feel so undeserving of this life I have. Amen. I feel so undeserving of it. I don't know why. I mean, I prayed and prayed and prayed and prayed and prayed for years and tried. I mean, these were a couple years of just pain and suffering before I even met Bobby Joe. It was a weird thing. But, me, my transformation was not a quick thing. And a lot of the stuff that I read, I read about the Robertson family a lot, and I mentioned them already. Phil Robertson, it makes me feel better about who I am and where I've come from and my journey when I read other people's. Because, for him, it wasn't just, I'm saved. There's this magic.
All my problems are gone.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think that might be a thing that people who aren't, really familiar with this, who think that's what it is, because it's not at all. And, once I started to learn more about other people and their journey, it made me feel better about my mistakes, if that makes any sense. It don't make me feel good about them, but it makes me just be like, hey, I don't beat myself up so much, because I did that for years. I really did. I beat myself up a lot.
Yeah. But that's like one of the worst tactics. I mean, I've been in that hole too, and I'm sure we all have, because like, I think it's a common thing that the devil always wants to isolate and then destroy, right? Because like he wants us to feel like, things are hopeless. No one has experienced what we've experienced. There's a Bible verse that I always kind of come back to, and basically it says, nothing has seized you beyond what is common to man. And the Lord is faithful. He provides a way to stand up against temptations and stuff. But that first part where it says, nothing has seized you but was common to man. I just think, man, everybody deals with this stuff.
Yeah.
Everybody deals with addiction. Everybody deals, in this day and age, whether it's substance, whether it's, a video game, pornography, a habit, like the sugar, like we our brains can turn anything into something that is just that we focus on, unnaturally instead of the Lord. And I just think that is, something that, he will always, like the devil will always try to, the father of lies, he tries to lie to us. He tries to make us feel like that. But at the end of the day, it's just, I don't know. There's so much of the Bible that talks about this. I think of like Ecclesiastes that talks about there's nothing new under the sun. What has been will be, and what has been will be again. I don't know. I feel that too. That like, man, when I hear about people, it's like, man, maybe I'm not the worst thing ever. Paul himself calls himself the chief of sinners. Why would he think that? Well, because he's thinking about the stuff that he's done. The people who have killed people, before. Moses was a murderer. A lot of people have done a lot of bad things, just like Paul did. But man, how great is it that, man, Jesus just uses losers like us. It's just amazing sometimes. Like even just driving here today, like I was just thinking about, man, like I've got to go here and like talk about God's stuff, right? And the big thing that the devil always throws at me, this is every time I go up to lead worship, by the way, like every time, there's always a little whisper right when I get up there and grab my guitar. I mean, literally since I've been able to play guitar, is you're not worthy to stand up here. Every time that it hits me. I mean, you guys, I don't think have a big background in playing in churches, for worship stuff, but like I just always, I don't know why, because I think like playing music for the Lord is just as meaningful. Like if you're doing it unto the Lord, I think it's just as meaningful if you're doing it in worship. It's just a different thing, but you're doing everything for the Lord. I feel like I don't have this like big distinction between like the secular and the holy in that sense. Like somebody going to work and doing the best they can at work, providing for their family, working as if unto the Lord, like the Bible says. I don't see that as any better or worse than like somebody going up and leading worship for the Lord, doing their best as if unto the Lord, right? So anyways, I don't want to try to like spiritualize that. But yeah, man, we could kind of riff on that there, but I want to kind of ask the most interesting man in the room, because whenever Krieger walks into the room, he pretty much is like, the most interesting as well as the best looking man in the room. So,
we definitely need to get him some screen time. But the thing with Krieger is, and I knew it would be like this. I knew the element in this whole podcast would be, he would be very quiet until stirred. Because when I asked him that question, he had plenty to say,
drops the bomb,
plenty
on
of wisdom, yeah. A big wisdom bomb. So
which also
I knew that would happen.
Let me say too, Krieger, he's having a little bit of he's not feeling his best today, and so he at great expense to himself, and he also drove the longest here to be here, like over 2 hours. So. Brother, thank you so much for being here and for doing that.
I tried to, dude, I was very adamant, like, hey, we don't have to do this. We can do this another time.
Reschedule, but...
And he was adamant to make it work, because he's like, well, next weekend I won't have time. The next weekend I was like, well, if it has to go to August, it has to go to August.
Yeah, I'm not trying to sandbag for you or anything, but like...
Yeah. What were you gonna ask him?
Yeah, I mean... Who is this Krieger? Who is this man?
Well,
real quick, do people only call you Krieger because I introduced you as Krieger? I
don't know. It doesn't matter how I introduce myself. People call me whatever they want to anyway. So I don't know. Sometime probably in junior high, I started signing my full name, on anything, papers in school or whatever it is I have to sign. And then I just eventually started introducing myself as my full name. I didn't always add my middle name or middle initial or whatever, but because that is a little strange. But it doesn't matter what I say. People will just pick up whatever version of it they want. So
you just give them all the options, right? And
no, I mean, I'm just another unworthy one. I mean, like the rest of us. And it's such a funny thing. Like, how do you wrap your brain around that? Like, who's worthy? Like, well, none of us are worthy. Yet at the same time, Jesus makes us worthy, in a sense. And of course, it's not about us. It's not about our accomplishments or what we can do or say or feel or whatever. So who am I? I don't think anybody really cares that much who I am or what I do. And half the time I'm sitting here scratching my head like, what do I tell them? What do I do? And all this stuff. So I don't know. I like to get to know people and really like see who they really are, not who they want the world to see them as on Facebook or whatever, or whatever, social media they use or whatever. And I do like seeing the genuine side of things. I don't, even if it's like, something they're not real pleased with, like, well, let's know what we're working with, I mean, if you came into, you're hired on to be in charge of a job and they tell you, oh yeah, everything's running great. We have everything we need. Our workers are great. And you're like, oh, okay. And you go home thinking, well, this job's going to run itself. And then before you know it, it's like you're getting calls. Hey, why isn't this done? Why? I thought everything was good. Well, you need to know what you're working with.
Absolutely.
And that's why, of course, being honest with yourself too. I mean, why lie to yourself? What are you going to fool yourself? I guess people do that, but anyway, that might not have anything to do with anything that anybody wants to know.
No, that just means you're not self-focused, honestly.
Well, I think this goes back to all of those things. What do I want to do? What do I want to listen to? What do I want to watch? What do I want to do? And it's like, God has a big plan, and he does want to include us. That's why he said in his word that, like, hey, do this, do this, do this. Not for our salvation, but because how cool is that to be able to partner with God in all the workings that he, has planned. Mm-hmm. And so it's not about what we want or how we want it. And even thinking of success, and when you guys said something about like you wouldn't have any more troubles, or not that everything's gonna be great after this, whatever. And it's like, what does that matter? Even if it's not going to be great after this, is our striving just for, so we don't have, to be lazy essentially and not have to worry about anything? Or is it to, do what God wants us to do? And honestly, if you're doing that, you don't have to worry about anything, because what's the worst that can happen? I mean, you imagine the worst thing. Well, is it as bad as what Jesus went through? Unlikely. And even if it is, well, great. And then we'll go meet him, and then that's going to be that. Like, I think perspective, I think it's hard with modern Christianity to have the right perspective, because what I grew up in was such a lukewarm environment. I mean, I don't even know if the warm is in there. It's just so...
Just Luke.
Just Luke. just terrible. But, it's like, you're not going to... Nothing is going to make any sense. Nothing is going to be fulfilling, because you don't have the right perspective. You're not going to have the right heart toward the whole situation. And I think for some people, like you talked about, what was that moment, in time? I feel like I know a lot of people that it wasn't one moment of, this switch. I think that's a cool concept, because man, how much would you just feel like just pour off of you, a weight that you don't have to carry anymore, just all of a sudden. And it's like, wow, that one moment of surrender. I think the people that go through it gradually in stages, searching, asking questions, I think what it is one day there's a fuller realization of what it is to you. Like, God's known it all along, and God probably knew when in your heart when you had surrendered it all, you just didn't even realize it maybe. But I think that's should be our goal instead of success or what people say, I just want to be happy or whatever. It's like, well, what's going to make you happy? Because I know people that can take that away from you in a second. I know
based on a circumstance.
I know circumstances that can change for no reason, or no apparent reason, or for a reason. And does that mean you deserve it more or less than somebody else? I don't have that answer, but I think that's the importance of really having that true perspective. And that's where these gospels and the preachers and the people teaching this, does God want you to be successful and happy and everything? A lot of people say, well, of course he does. I'm not really so sure, because what is it that brings people to their knees and to Christ? It's you. I mean, it's not, I won the lottery. Praise Jesus. I'm going to give away all the money I just won and live for him. I don't think that happens that often. But when the people lose everything, or they think they lost everything, or they lost so much, or they went through so much, that's when it brings people around. And I think all he wants is to be able to bless you with all the things that you were looking for, that you thought you lost. You never had them in the first place.
Amen.
But anyway, that might have been a long-winded rant about something off the topic.
Hey guys, thanks for watching the Christian Content Podcast. Please support the channel by liking and subscribing on YouTube, and follow us on all of the other unnecessary time-wasting social media apps.